So with icon swaps dropping in FIFA 21 soon, it's time to predict which icons could be featuring in set number 1. If you need to get your hands on some coins to improve your ultimate team, then check out the link in the description, igvault.com, and if you use the code Kieron at checkout, you'll get yourself a pretty nice discount. Now, this is going to be something that's actually really hard to predict, so if I get a few right, I'll be honest, I'll be pretty happy. Because ultimately, there isn't really criteria to be predicting these players for. All we know is that players who've had an icon SBC, that variant will not be in a future icon swap. That's all we know. So, yeah, with that in mind, wish me luck with these predictions. Now, in this video, I've been, fairly realistic. I haven't put anyone in overly expensive, because last year in set 1, I think the most expensive player at the time was that Drogba, who was around 1.5 mil, and that's the kind of price I expect the best player to be in Icon Swaps 1. Maximum 1.75 mil maybe. Yeah, that's probably about right. I'll be surprised if there is someone who has a higher value than that, but if there is, then that's probably good for us. So, yeah, in the comment section down below, I want to hear from you guys. Who do you think will feature in Icon Swaps Set 1, and who do you think will be the most valuable player in it? Now, I'm going to imagine that icon swaps in FIFA 21 isn't going to be too much different from in previous years, where we're going to have to unlock X amount of tokens to redeem for X icon. And in this video today, I'm not going to really put, like, quote unquote prices on these icons, but essentially we're going to start with the lower tier ones that are going to cost like 4 to 8 tokens, and then towards the end of the video we've got the higher tier icons who I think will cost a bit more, the 20 to like 23 token icons. I hope that makes sense. If you know how icon swaps works, or has worked in the past, you'll understand what I mean by that. And if you don't know how icon swaps works, then check out the video that I did the other day, where I speak about icon swaps and how it has been in the past and why I think it's coming very, very soon. Just one more thing before we get into the players. Bear in mind, Icon Swaps 1 this year is going to end a lot later in the year than Icon Swaps 1 did last year. This promo is probably going to end like after Team of the Year. So I am expecting to see some much better icons in this first set of Icon Swaps this year than we did in last year's first set, if that makes sense. Anyway, let's now finally get into, the players. So let's begin then, and we will begin with one of the players who I think obviously will be relatively easy to pick up, and that is the mid VIERI, who, let's be honest, just isn't super meta. He's got alright pace, pretty good shooting and nice physicals, but his dribbling isn't that great for Ultimate Team, and ultimately he's one of the players that's just hard to, control with the ball, and that's why he's quite cheap, and that's why he could be one of, the lower tier options for Icon Swaps number 2. So, Christian VIERI, how many of you would submit 4 or 5 tokens for this card? Let me know in the comments. Now, I had to throw, an Nakata in there, because if you didn't get a base icon Nakata in your base icon pack, then surely you will want to have a Nakata at some point in FIFA Ultimate Team, so why not get the mid one in Icon Swaps? I'm sure some variant of Nakata will feature at some point, so yeah, let's just get it out of the way here. Let's put the mid icon one in Icon Swaps 1, and if people want it, they can get it. And to be honest, people knock like Nakata's items in the game because they're quite cheap, but I've been using the base version of him, and he's actually been quite good for me, to be honest. He's obviously not worth a lot, but he's definitely not a bad card. Another item which I could see being involved is a base icon Petite. Now, this is an interesting card because it's a left back item, and obviously Petite's other items are CDMs, so this could be, I could see this one being popular if it happens, just because it would be a nice left back icon option for some people's teams, and he's one of them players who in game you can switch him to a different role and he'll do a good job there. So yeah, I think this one could be interesting, especially if it's priced quite cheap. I think a lot of people will actually go for it. Now, I personally would really like to see the base John Barnes in Icon Swaps. I think this is actually a pretty nice item. It's not too expensive either, and I feel like this would be another one that would be popular if it was in there and if it was priced quite low. Obviously, it doesn't have amazing pace, but the passing, shooting, and dribbling and physicals are all pretty decent. So yeah, could be a good card for some people's teams, and also could be an absolutely brilliant super sub for some people. And for the final player that I can see being in, the quite low, cheapish tier, we have the mid Riquelme. Obviously came late into last year's Ultimate Team, so wasn't involved too much. So maybe they'll throw him in to one of the early icon swaps this year. Either the base or mid version, or even the prime, to be honest, because the prime probably won't be too expensive. So maybe the prime could be in there too. The next player we have is the mid Guardiola. Now, we had the base Guardiola in Icon Swaps 1 of last year's Ultimate Team, And to be honest, that card was spectacular. For that stage of the game, it was absolutely brilliant. So maybe EA will do a bit of a throwback to that and put the mid version in this year. And now we're kind of moving on to, you know, a bit more of a higher tier, so we're not so much on the cheaper ones now. We're getting into, like, you know, the mid-range icons of Icon Swaps 1. And with that in mind, let's move on to Ashley Cole. Now, obviously, we've got a bunch of new icons to this year's roster, and I feel like EA will throw quite a few of them into the first set of icon swaps. So obviously, I don't think they'll throw in loads of prime versions of them. I think they'll, like, save them for later in the year, but I think we'll see quite a few base and mid versions of some of the new icons. So yeah, let's see which ones I have included. I've actually included quite a few, but obviously I don't think all of them will get in, because that means that they won't feature later in the year. But I do think some will, and I think Cole could be a pretty good option, especially his base card as well, because this is one of his better variants, because it's one of the faster ones. So I feel like this would be a really popular pickup in icon swaps if he was to be selected. So every set we seem to get a goalkeeper, so ultimately I had, you know, a 1 in 4 guess at which goalkeeper they'll go for. We've obviously got Yashin, Schmeichel, Van der Sar and Cech. I think they might save Cech for later in the year, and Van der Sar's just recently had an SBC for his base icon, and Schmeichel's in icon set 1 of last year, so I thought, you know what, let's just go for Yashin and see what happens. So yeah, that's pretty much my theory behind this pick. Hugo Sanchez, the mid version, is the next card we are going to discuss. Now, he was actually in Icon Swaps 1 last year. So, yeah, you might be wondering why I've put him in again. I've put him in again because this year he's actually got composure. If you look at the stats last year, I don't know why none of Hugo Sanchez's cards had good composure. It was just like, he literally had like 40 composure. It was really weird. But this year they've upgraded it a lot, so he's now usable. So maybe, you know, they'll just give him another go. I do expect to see a couple of prime icon options in this set, and I've gone for JJ Okocha, and I've also gone for Perez, who you'll see in a moment. I just think both of them, you know, they've got decent cards, but they're never normally too expensive on the market. So, you know, one or maybe both of them could be both thrown in to the first set of icon swaps, and I think they would both, you know, fit the promo rather nicely. We have another prime card next in the form of Prime Ruud van Nistelrooy. Maybe I'm being a bit over the top here with the amount of primes I've gone for, but I haven't really picked any that are going to be mega expensive. This card, for example, although it's high rated and does have some good stats, it won't be mega expensive on the market because ultimately it just doesn't fit the game that well. We've seen that pretty much every single year that we've had Van Nistelrooy in the game. So yeah, I think there's a chance it gets included. Maybe they won't go for the prime version, maybe one of the lower tier options. Next up, we have David Beckham, and ultimately my theory on this one is the base version of him isn't going to be in packs for long in Ultimate Team, because obviously base icons go out of packs mid-December. So yeah, there won't be many chances to actually pick up the base icon Beckham. Therefore, I think there's a chance they might include it in icon swaps. And obviously, with him being a new icon to this year's Ultimate Team and FIFA in general, obviously him alone will bring a lot of hype to the promo. And even if this card was one of the, you know, more expensive ones, I think a lot of people would go for it just because they will want to try out Beckham in Ultimate Team. Obviously, though, we do have to bear in mind we are all getting a free version of Beckham at some point as well, so maybe they won't include it, but I'm going to go for it anyway because I think it would be quite nice to have him in. And then next to him we have Baresi, who's another one on cards. It's another prime, by the way, but Baresi is never expensive. He has insane stats. His defensive stats are up there with some of the best in the game, but yeah, he's just never that expensive. He's normally quite cheap for you know, a 93 icon, so I expect that to be the same this year, and because of that, I think he could feature early in icon swaps. You're going to notice a pretty big jump in the icon quality in a moment as we get towards the end, because now we're going to be talking about the players who are going to be like 18, 19, 20 plus tokens in swaps. So let's begin by talking about Davor Suker, who obviously has returned to Ultimate Team this year. Has been in previous Ultimate Teams in the past, but then missed out for a bit, and now he is back. And I've gone for the mid variant of him to feature because that's one of the more appealing cards that he actually has. And I've used it, it's a pretty solid item, and I think people would be pretty happy to play it for this card if it was indeed an option. Another item I think a lot of people would look to get if it was available is the mid icon Stoichkov, just because it's a pretty insane looking card. Like, on face value, this item looks absolutely amazing. Brilliant pace, dribbling, shooting, passing and physicals. yeah, pretty nutty card to be honest. Currently going for around 800 to 900k as well, so would be one that I think quite a lot of people would have their eyes on if it was available. And then also now we're coming on to, you know, some of the proper big boys where you're looking around a million coins. We have the baby Mateus, who is not a CDM like some of the other Mateus items. He's actually a centre back. So yeah, I wonder how many people would submit, you know, a lot of tokens for a pretty expensive centre back. Would you? Let me know in the comments. Just like Mateus, Desai is around 1.1 million on the market at the minute, so I think he could be a popular choice. This is the mid version of him, and obviously the interesting thing about this card is the fact that it's not a centre-back card, it is a CDM item. So I've kind of gone for two quote-unquote position change icons back to back. But now let's move on to some of the icons which I think will be, you know, your top tier ones, your like mega expensive ones, your like 20 token plus options. I've actually thrown in a Prime Vidic. Now, this one maybe won't be that expensive because his base and mid icons are actually quite cheap on the market. I think so anyway. They're both under like 500k, which is pretty mad for a new icon who's got decent pace. So Prime Icon Vidic on the market probably won't be too expensive, but with icon swaps only just coming out and with this Vidic only just coming on the market, maybe EA will get away with having it, you know, as one of the top tier icons. And I'm sure a lot of people, especially Man United fans, would love to chase a first owner Prime Vidic for their clubs. So something to think about there. Now we're going to come on to some very expensive icons, or we will in a moment anyway. We're going to start with the... we've got 3 more to go essentially, so we're going to start with mid icon Henry. I won't lie, I'm obviously an Arsenal fan, so it's a bit biased. I would just really like to see this one happen because it would be the one that I would probably end up chasing, just to have, you know, a first owner Henry in the club. The Prime maybe could come into it, but I can't see it because his Prime will be way too expensive for this stage of the game. So I've gone for the mid variant of him, and to be honest, this card's like 1.3 mil right now, and I think it would fit, you know, the higher tier options of Icon Swaps 1. Then we come on to Philipp Lahm. Now, these final 2 cards, I'll just tell you who the other one is. It's Torres. So we've got mid Torres, and we also have mid Lahm. I think one of these 2 could be the headlining player of Icon Swaps 1. I don't think both will feature, but I didn't know which one to drop, to be honest. They both cost around the same on the market right now, about 1.4 to 1.5 million coins, and I think one of these could be the headlining player of swaps. Like I touched on earlier, last year one of the headlining players was Drogba, and he was about 1.5 mil when Icon Swaps launched, so I think that'll be the same price range EA go for the top tier cards of this year's Icon Swaps. I hope this is all making sense. So I was looking at like one of these, I just didn't know which one to pick, so I've just put both of them in the video, and I hope at least one of them does feature. A lot of people will chase that Lahm because it's an awesome card, and a lot of people will chase that Torres because not only is it a very good card, but it's like super meta for the game. Torres is very good in this year's FIFA, and yeah, I think a lot of people would go after it, as well as obviously Torres is a pretty top popular player in general as well. So yeah guys, those are my predictions for Icon Swaps number 1. Like I said at the start of the video, I'm not expecting to get a lot of these predictions correct because like there's no criteria to base this off. It's pretty much is just, you know, a guessing game. I'm just hopeful that a bunch of these, you know, decent icons do feature, and hopefully we have a pretty strong batch of icons to choose from in the first set. So yeah, we're coming towards the end of the video now. If you could leave a like rating on it, that'd be very much appreciated, and in the comments below I do want to hear from you guys. I want you to be active, I want you to be leaving comments. I want to know which players do you think will feature. Do you think I've been, you know, too generous with some of the players that I've included? And I also want to know which player do you think will be, you know, the top tier icon in the first set of Icon Swaps of FIFA 21. Let me know all that good stuff in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to the channel as well if you are new around here. I'll be doing plenty of player reviews on pretty much every single icon that's in Icon Swaps when it drops. So yeah, look out for that. Thanks for watching guys, and as always I'll catch you in the next one.